Welcome to Double A Gaming. We're here to talk about the new Red God and some of the design of them and what we think about them for EDH. We're gonna do one each for each god that comes out this week. We assume it's gonna be one a day, like they did with the old gods. And we may have Kyle join. Andy's here, and we're gonna
Hey.
start talking about it. so I'm pretty glad they're not enchantments. Kyle pointed this out earlier, and that was like the biggest thing I took away from this is they're not designed around devotion and they're not enchantments because like Kyle said, fuck trying to blow up an indestructible enchantment in basically any format, including EDH.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to like what Mark Rosewater was saying around the time that the Theros block was coming out, they did try to make it pretty much all enchantment based, and I would assume that goes hand in hand with like the whole like mysticism of the Greek mythology back,
Oh yeah, that
like
certainly made
for
sense.
what goes on there. Whereas like I'm actually quite surprised there's not like artifacts this time because Egyptian mythology almost always there was mysticism, but it was more of like the um, hugely into like the like what you can take with you to the underworld kind of stuff. Especially like there's the whole bomb stuff that they introduced to us. So I'm really actually surprised it's not just like artifacts this time. But then again, artifacts are always that touchy. Just like, why did you just fuel these artifact combo decks? Like, thanks,
Oh
Magic.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm pretty glad they're not, not gonna lie, Andy. I'm pretty glad they're not artifacts in any capacity
Yeah,
whatsoever. Um,
I do think the enchantments was just something that was supposed to be like
cool, but it as far
cool
as
for the
EDH
Theros
went,
block, and then
like having to deal with stuff like
Xenagos is gonna suck when you can't take care of them. Like
yeah,
when you can't
Like
underwrite Xenagos, yeah, it's not
the
gonna. Well,
the
I guess
big
you could, right?
what
Underended Xenagos, you can definitely do that.
you could yeah, you can under Xenagos at any given time. But definitely just have it's mostly just spot removal that can deal with the gods. So like something like a Porphyros may just sit there for turn after turn after turn. I'm certainly glad that it's activated. It costs mana. For I'm gonna put the image up, but it does cost two and a red, and you have to discard a card to do the damage. So you're definitely not gonna be like you're not gonna be tooth and nailing for like a Venger Zendikar and a Porphyros and just killing everybody at the table. Um,
Well,
or
let's just break down the whole card.
yeah, it's
Let
a
me
three
see.
drop 5/4. Uh,
It's a four drop five four.
oh yeah, so yeah, yeah, that would be bad. It's a 4 drop 5/4, three in a red, and it's an indestructible haste creature, and it can attack or block unless you have one or fewer cards in hand. Um, and you can pay two and a red, discard a card, and it deals two damage to each opponent. Um, it's not an enchantment. It's just a legendary creature god. So they're always creatures. Like they're always susceptible to just about everything. Uh, as annoying as indestructible can be, these aren't going to be hard to kill in EDH for sure. Or not nearly as bad as like Porphyros at the same government mana cost doing a similar thing.
With the amount of like sacrifice and put on top of your library and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, well,
it
just
won't be that huge of an issue as
yeah,
like Pulveros or
yeah. Well, the big
Erebos
problem
or
with those
something like
gods
that.
is they were off half the time. A good chunk of the
Yeah.
time. Bring me back to somebody pointed it out. I forget. I think it was I saw what's the name of that MTG uh
Voltage
who's the really big channel? Oh, I can't remember his name.
headquarters, MTG headquarters,
MTG
Jeremy.
headquarters. I remember I he said something along the lines of devotion. He was really, really upset, or like he said it was stupid that they didn't have devotion. I'm actually incredibly glad that all these gods aren't going to be built at all around devotion. I personally think devotion's. I think I responded with this. I think devotion is incredibly small design space. Basically,
Well, you
if you
got to look back at like what was it? The when was Chroma?
Well, Chroma was
Was
in
that
Eventide, and that's when they had
yeah? That
that's
was
when
like
they
their first take at it.
that was their first take at it, and that was also a set with hybrid symbols in it. So it made some sense. It kind of worked, but for the most part, it didn't work. Um,
Yeah, and then
Devotion,
they tried again,
yeah, Devotion,
and then again.
yeah. Well, I mean, they
Everybody
tried again
didn't.
in
It
Theros,
didn't
and
work the
they
way that they wanted it to work.
well, that's the thing is it's very linear. Design space for Devotion basically says Devotion only works at its best or well if you're playing a bunch of heavy colored permanents dot deck. Like that's what you have to play. So it does not do well with like it doesn't do well with artifacts. It doesn't do well with like
This
playing.
god.
Yeah, like I mean it's
Tiki
just
Tiki is better than this guy.
yeah, exactly.
If
Like
you're gonna be playing
yeah,
devotion.
I mean like even something like you could have like a Sheoldred that cost 4 mana, right? 3 and a black. Let's say Sheoldred
Mm-hmm.
just got suddenly printed, everything the same, 4 mana. You'd still rather have like Dawn Elemental in your white deck or Phyrexian Obliterator in your black one because it just does that much more just being like weirdly costed. Um, and unfortunately, in like, if you build around devotion stuff, that was the other big problem is a lot of these gods were really powerful, but you could just leave them as enchantments. Um, I'm glad as far as standard wise and constructed wise, like we won't have to be looking. Oh well, this creature's kind of cool, but it only has one green mana symbol, so I guess I don't care anymore.
Yeah, you won't be. Well, it also seems like, just to use Pulveris as an example, um, you took him out of enchantment by having the devotion, essentially. They become your creature, and you could start beating with them.
You almost didn't want to play more shit. Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you wanted your gods to be less like
Whereas,
vulnerable.
so far from what we can tell, this guy kind of just hangs out until you meet his requirement for him to attack or block. And I mean, luckily he's able to, or I guess it's a she.
Yes,
She's
it is
able
a
to
shame.
bring herself down to one or fewer cards in your hand by herself. You don't need to add anything else. With just this god, you can. The difference being with just this god card, you are able to make her into a attacking or blocking creature. But at the same time, like Pulveros, while he was, let's see, we got a picture of Pulveros here.
Well,
He's the same converted mana cost.
yeah,
He still has his ability is the same cost besides discarding a card, and it boosts creatures you control.
yeah.
But at the same time, he has creatures entering the battlefield, causing your opponents to take damage.
Well, yeah, but that was the
Um,
big problem is no one ever uses the second ability. It's only about the first, and I'm glad like I
well, at the same time, um, I feel like these cards are lacking in that department where they should be able to have something on them extra. Again, we've only seen one. No idea what we're going to see for the
yeah, I
rest.
mean this
Maybe
was the
there's
red
going to
one.
be something.
It was clear this time around they wanted to design it to actually like have an impact for constructed more so than like or for standard constructed than like say like
Instead of like a EDH
EDH
or
or like kitchen table
yeah.
Timmy's. Like
Well,
definitely.
kitchen table casual, I bet you can really get this one going.
Well, I
Um,
mean, I was gonna say like something. Definitely some of the Punisher decks. Heavy discard decks. I know there are definitely Rakdos colored builds. Rakdos Grixis, maybe not Grixis, but Rakdos, Jund, or maybe Mardu builds that run out of cards pretty fast. And make sure everyone else doesn't have them with things like Siren Insanity or like um, Bottomless Pit and stuff like that. That just make sure you have just no cards in hand at any given time, or nobody's allowed to. Like stacks with red. This card can definitely be incredible.
no
Um,
one likes sticks.
yeah, yeah. No one does like stacks, but the option to just burn out your opponents over multiple turns by um, just pitching cards you didn't want anyways, or pitching cards you don't need, or pitching cards no one can use anymore, is definitely. is definitely a
I
plus to
find
it.
it extremely funny that this card, when we are like my first impression of this card was great for standard,
Mm.
not usable by me in EDH.
Yeah, it's pretty meh. I can only think of maybe building, like I said, that Rakdos discard build to have fun with it, or I may try it in Jund Punisher, to be honest. Um,
But the funny part about it is that it hits opponents, each opponent,
oh
which
yeah, yeah,
in a standard environment there isn't going to be more than one opponent.
yeah.
So
It loses a
like they
lot of.
almost designed the card being like EDH players are gonna go nuts, and I see it and I don't think so.
Yeah,
no,
exactly. It is
no
funny
thanks,
that they
Wizards.
added that like multiplayer focus on it when basically having Hellbent or having low cards in hand in multiplayer is probably like
The worst thing for you.
the worst thing
I
for
mean, I
you.
can see again, like you said, Punisher stacks. Um, you're going to be able to get through those stacks. Your opponents are going to be losing permanents, especially if you're using smokestack. Um, like a Nekusar style build where you're discarding people all the time. However, you're drawing cards all the time, so you can keep up with this. But at the same time, since you're drawing cards all the time, like how are you going to keep as a creature? Almost comes down to like the just pay 3 a turn to do damage to your opponents and hope you can ride out a victory there for an EDH scenario.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Uh,
pretty tough. I
I'm a
do.
little concerned that this may be how they're going to make it so you unlock your creatures, though, with cycling and the amount of discard we're seeing show up. Um, I'm a little concerned that might be like the green one's indestructible trample. You got to have one or fewer cards in your hand
Oh
to get it to
no.
go. You know what I mean?
There's been quite a few. I think the best argument against that is Red was heavily designed with Madness in mind for
Yeah.
Shadows, and this set might have been designed with the idea that BFC and Oath of the Gatewatch was being pushed out. So
I mean, there's a lot of evidence that
there's I mean, I certainly think it was designed with at least Madness and some of the mechanics in uh,
from Shadows block.
Shadows block in somewhat in mind for this. Um,
Mm,
I don't think there's I think I don't think the other ones. I think the best thing I heard is the other ones are all going to be activated by other different things. Kyle mentioned. I don't think he's going to be here, so I'm just going to say what I talked to him earlier about. Um, he mentioned that starting life total or amount of creatures would probably be something for white. Green is either going to be lands or the power of the creature. Black
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
creature cards in
Almost like
graveyards, so it
the
works
hideaway
well with
lands,
Madness too.
essentially.
Oh, sorry, what?
Almost like the hideaway lands, except for black and red.
Yeah,
Like
like
black was
hideaway
obviously going
land
to have
like
cards in
ones.
hand, like the red was do this much damage, greens have this much power, blues mill this many cards, and white was like attack this many creatures. I do believe I was having a conversation with Mark earlier about it, and we were talking about how it was pretty much going to follow those guidelines. But at the same time, like I can't. It's not like I haven't been surprised by Wizards before, thinking that oh man, they could do something great with this, and then it's kind of like the cycle is all just the same. And you're
Um,
just like, all right,
yeah, but I think that might have been a better idea if it weren't for the fact that cycling mostly makes you draw cards too. So you're
or
kind of
like the number one thing that they're hoping will sell the set, the gods coming back, and like making the
yeah, and just
mythology
make them
jumping up,
all
and
yeah,
then just being like, you know what, just half-ass
make
it,
the
see what
blue one
happens.
around having less cards in hand and just that's
Oh
so
yeah,
easy to do.
that's what our blue players want.
Yeah, I honestly doubt that. I think
Yeah.
I do think a good argument is what the blue one will do. I would be interested to
That is it.
see. I
If you flash back a card and cast it this turn, you can do this.
Oh my
What?
god,
There's no
yeah,
flashback.
just makes Snapcaster amazing. No, I think
Yeah.
I said it was gonna be Mill. That's my big guess. Is it's gonna be all based around how many like something like trying to make like that
Cards in
hideaway
graveyards or
mechanic,
something.
yeah, like work,
Yeah.
like the amount of cards in their graveyard activates it,
Yeah.
and then you can mill them.
Leaning more towards like an EDH sense though, like is there any reason you would use this as your general? Like I know this is never in my 99 in a
The,
red deck. I don't play you play a lot more red than I do. When I do play red, it's not the discard draw. I try to avoid as much as possible. And I'm not really can do direct damage as much as you are. So I
Uh,
know this is out of my 99,
a,
but would it ever be your general for a red deck?
a general, probably not. Probably under.
I don't think I could count it out.
Um,
Don't think I could count it out as a
that's why I
general. Is
said
it a four
probably
drop
not. For me
with the
personally,
low
no.
mana cost,
I think
and
there's a
it
lot
is
of really
direct
cool
damage?
red like generals, but if you wanted to, I do believe that like I wouldn't be surprised if you could just kind of use this guy to ditch lands in particular, or play him as like a burn general and just kind of have fun with it. If you wanted to just have fun with it and just kind of use this guy to, or use her to just kind of just drop all your land shit or stuff you don't need. Um, I could see it maybe being one in the 99 on Feldon. That wouldn't be bad. A discard outlet is actually kind of hard to come across in red, weirdly enough,
Yeah.
especially one that can happen like instant speed. Um, is certainly nothing to sneeze at. So I could actually see some arguments for her showing up in one of the 99s in a few kind of archetypes, mostly just fast red decks in general, or ones that certainly don't mind being on the low end. Like say Boros, like almost every Boros aggressive deck should probably be running this because they run out of cards faster than anybody. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having
My
land
Burn
cards.
Tavern deck didn't like having cards in hand after like turn 8.
Not to mention you can fling him or fling her after your
You can
kind.
play it.
You can fling her. She will be a creature at all times. She may not be able to attack or block, but you can just dump all the cards in your hands and fling her at somebody else. I mean, that can be a lot of damage. So it's
Soul Fire and all that.
I think it's not terrible in EDH. I think as a general, I think you have to be having fun with it in order to want to run it. In terms of like actually getting a decent play experience out of her, because I just don't think there's really much you can do with her as mono red, having that kind of ability.
I just like her low cost. If you ever don't have cards in your hand, you can start punching for decent damage.
Yeah, it's a 5/4
Um,
indestructible. There's
and it
nothing
is
to sneeze
just
at.
if you got nothing to do on your turn or you're just trying to hold out for something, just paying that 3, discarding like if you get lucky enough to have like Crucible or something on board, just pitching a land, hitting everyone for 2 and or all your opponents for 2. And
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
going that way.
I think like in Rakdos and Boros, where you might be running some card advantage engines that could make use of this. At least the slow ones like Crucible and stuff like that, or getting stuff back from the graveyard. Especially with black, when you have stuff like Oversold Cemetery, where you can pitch them first, get them back. There's quite an option for doing a good chunk of damage. I think yeah, I think it's definitely decent as one of the 99, or at least I'll never make fun of you for it. As far as running it as your general, I'm still not sold as a general so much as a 99, but I can certainly see if you get the evocation, try it out. Run it over your like other mono red general, because most of the
See what
decks are
happens.
constructed the same. But um, yeah, my
You think
general,
that no way that little fork that she's got there isn't going to be a legendary artifact going back.
um,
Looking down at Pulveros, he's got his hammer right there,
yeah, I know
all
all the.
shiny and gold, and she's got her little like spear trident thing there.
I'm not
And then
sure they'll
on
bring that
Bident,
back. I think they're gonna try and separate this as almost as much as
trim
possible from
shiny.
Theros.
I mean, last time they were what legendary like enchantment artifacts.
Yeah,
That what
so
they were?
if
Yeah. And this time it could just be a legendary artifact. I mean, we could just be looking at some sort of
maybe legendary equipment, I could see that.
like an equipment. Yeah, coming back. I mean, it's kind of a copy of the Bident again, but
You could try it. Yeah,
again,
I don't know about maybe making the weapons, but we'll see. Um, um,
everybody loves artifacts. You can't. Nobody. I've never heard somebody be like.
I'm just mostly I'd
All
be
right, never
surprised
mind.
if
I've
they
heard
made.
Desolator say he hates artifacts.
I'm just
By the
saying I'd
sounds
be
of that, he
surprised if
may
they made equipment at
affinity.
this point because it would kind of like really good equipment at this point. I think I was pointing it out the other day. They haven't done any good equipment because they were building up for vehicles, and to just kind of like do equipment after vehicles, they basically take up the same design space.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
They're different blocks, though. I mean, to be fair, you can kind of have same ideas, different times, and then they end up just being next to each other.
true. I also do think that we're going back to Mirrodin soon. Um, or we're going back to
Newfrexia.
New Phyrexia soon. Yeah, that happened. I do think we're going back to New Phyrexia soon, so we'll be seeing plenty of equipment there. The -1/-1 counter themes is a good segue into doing more -1/-1 counter themes on another plane. Um, Especially in terms of like
I mean, not Infect, no way.
no, 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 never infect again. Anybody who has their hopes up for infect is gonna need to have a sit down chat.
We're sorry.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. Your favorite mechanic
Go look at
is like right
Mark
below like Storm
Rosewater.
and Cascade on the list of shit that's not happening again in a standard environment. Um,
Go look at Mark Rosewater's FAQ sheet on his Tumblr, and then let it sink in.
yeah, yeah, he has a storm scale, and it's on a scale of 1 to storm how likely this shit's gonna be reprinted. And I think like infect is like went from like a solid 4 to like infect blowing up in modern and then realizing it's never happening again.
Yeah, I think last I saw was like a 9.
Yeah, it was a 9.5 last
Out
I
of
saw,
10.
so it's pretty
Yeah.
bad. So,
Yeah.
Red God, I'd give it an overall for, I guess, for EDH, just pretty solid, like 2 out of 5. Should show up in some decks. Be worried about the fact that it's indestructible. Like, that could just start beating your face in. But mostly get worried about the the activated ability of pitching a card and dealing some extra damage can get pretty out of hand if they have a way to get more get more cards in hand and just keep it going.
If I gotta put it on like I'm assuming my 1 to 5 is gonna be probably in power rank. Which one's the worst? 5 being the best one. I'd have to probably put that
Yeah, we'll
1.
we'll put like let's say old gods. Let's say friggin' Etheria or something. What's the worst god from the old ones?
Gafara of Garapolis.
No, who was the one that was the no? She was actually fine in EDH. Who's the one that's the worst? The Golgari one. Which one's that?
Farika.
Frika. So yeah, on a scale of Frika to Porphyros, if being 1 through 5.
Yeah. I mean, there's only gonna be 5 of them, so we can probably just give it a number.
I'll
Put a
say one
5.
through five.
One
One is
being
the
the
worst.
worst, and then
5 is the
5
best.
being the best.
Yeah, so I
I'd
said a
probably have to
two.
put it at 1. I can't see them doing anything worse than this card, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably.
Again, red's my least favorite color, so it's definitely skewed.
Uh, I could
I
definitely
absolutely
see
don't
that.
care
Red.
about this discard. I don't care about this direct damage. They could completely mess up the white and the well, they're doing some good stuff with white right now, but they could completely mess up the white, green, and blue, in my opinion. I feel
I,
like the black at the shot in the dark. I bet this black's gonna be 5 on my scale.
Shot in the dark. I'm gonna say blue is gonna be a really, really ridiculous mill one. But I won't care, and I'll take another shot in the dark, and I'll say the green one's gonna be phenomenal this time around. Nylea was definitely the redheaded stepchild last time, and I think green has been incredibly powerful the last few standard sets, and I think they won't let us down this time for EDH constructed God. I think the green one's gonna.
I'm totally okay with if you think green's gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got my red one. I'm definitely excited for standard, without a doubt. If I had to give it a standard rating, this is a 5 out of 5. This thing will mess up your day.
Yeah,
Um,
I think keep your eyes. I don't know too much about standard, but from what I do know, I'd have to say keep an eye on this card. Keep an eye on everything else that's coming out, and make sure if you see a lot of this discard, a lot of the cycling floating around, and you want to be on it, get on it before you second think it becomes the next Heart of Kieran floating around.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but she does crew Heart of Kiran. I think somebody pointed that out. All these gods are going to be deactivated. Even when they are deactivated, they can still crew vehicles.
So instead of having some like trash artifact crew, and you have this beast that's gonna just show up later in the game.
Yeah, eventually it's going to
That's
be more of
great.
a problem, but for now you're getting hit with a Heart of Kiran, which is probably worse than a 5/4 indestructible haste, anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's both our opinions. We got a 1 out of 5 and a 2 out of 5, so give it a solid 1.5 out of 5 from us.
A
Um,
solid. Eh.
yeah, a solid for EDH, but I'm gonna have fun with it in standard, so I'm still happy. Um, Not to mention one last thing, I'm sure you guys have seen the meme going around that look at the um look at the evocation or masterpiece of this god card, and her type line,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like the Hazaret the pervert is like, you'll never unsee
Yep.
it now. It's
Herbert the pervert.
yeah,
That's what I was
we'll
calling
talk
him
about the
today.
evocations another time, when when we got more, but yeah, it's bad. It's we'll have to chat that up. But I think we're coming to a close. Yeah, we're going on about 30 minutes, so we will catch you tomorrow. We'll see what the next god is, and we'll be talking about it then. Until then, Double A Gaming signing out.
Later.